And everybody, and welcome. My name is Paul Kearney. I'm the Executive Director of HERA, the House Energy Raters Association. We have quite a number of members that are NatHERS accredited assessors, and we deal with them on a day-to-day basis and answer many questions that they throw at us. One of the major questions that we get asked, particularly from new assessors that are just starting out in the industry, is how much should I charge for an assessment? Well, honestly, that is very difficult to answer, but I try and run them through what their competitors are like and what they've got to work out as to where they fit in the industry, because their competition is very large. So I just run through a list of assessors that are in the industry, and we'll start with the accredited assessors, NatHERS accredited assessors. These guys are accredited, they're members of association, they do CPD, they have professional indemnity insurance, and they have various degrees of business. There are a number of them out there that run volume assessments. They don't offer much service, but given a set of plans, they'll run through their assessments and they do it price by volume. Then you have the assessors at the other end of the market that do provide a very detailed service on complex buildings. In my time, I've seen prices that range from $60 an assessment to $1,500 an assessment. Now, I am even aware of an assessor out there that charges $60 to do an assessment. Not quite sure how he does that, because he's got to pay $30 for the certificate. So I'm not too sure how many assessments he's got to do to earn an income at $30 a shot. I'm also aware of an assessor out there that just does complex buildings and provides an exceptional service in how to get the best energy rating out of a complex building. Now, this person I know charged for one that I don't believe that I could have ever seen anybody do, charged $3,000 for the assessments. So the range varies, but they were accredited to NatHERS assessors. Then we move on to the non-accredited assessors. Now, this is fine. People are allowed to be non-accredited assessors, quite legal in many states. However, they're not accountable. They don't have to worry about membership. They don't have to worry about accreditation, insurance, or CPD. So they don't have the expenses an accredited assessor has. But they're really not an issue in this market, because CSIRO survey last year, there was only 6% of the certificates issued that were issued by non-accredited assessors. So there's not a lot out there that to be concerned about the pricing from non-accredited assessors. The next one's thermal performance assessment consultancy organisations. Now, these are organisations that contract numbers of assessors, and they do their work by volume. So they'll get a reasonably good rate for their assessment, and they'll outsource it to the other assessors, and they'll take their margin off the price. Concern that we have with that is that in some cases the external assessors don't know that they are still responsible. Because they have contracts with the consultancy agencies, they think that they're the ones that are responsible. But we need to convince the assessor that if it's his name and his number that is put on the certificate, then he's the one that's responsible, he or she, sorry. They are the ones that are responsible for the actual job. So there is a concern there with those consultant companies. The next one we deal with is the in-house assessor. So in-house assessors, these people are mainly employed by volume builders, where the volume builders might do 300 or 400 houses a year, and they have internal assessors, so they don't have to worry about outsourcing their certificates. They pay for someone to do them in-house. Then we have companies that send their assessments offshore. There are people out there that do that. They will charge accordingly for the assessments, and they'll get the assessment done by an overseas person, depending on what they charge. Where I'm certainly not aware of what the charges are, but they must be reasonably cheap for these people to do this. Concern with that is, are the offshore assessors aware of the National Construction Code? Are they aware of the Australian standards? Do they know about climate zones in Australia? Probably not. Yet we've got assessors that continue to do this, and then they'll get the assessment back, the report back, and they'll just sign it off, which again amazes me, without going through and doing a crucial inspection of what these people have done. Maybe because they're too busy, they haven't got time to be signing it off. They've got so much work on, they outsource it. When it comes back in, they're just signing them off. I have seen where an assessor that has done that was absolutely crucified in an audit because he didn't check it. He admitted, yes, he got it done overseas. He admitted that someone else had done it and he'd signed it off. He was responsible. Now that could end up being a case that he might be penalised for having to rectify the dwelling because it hasn't been rated properly. So very dangerous practice, we believe. We have multiple, the next one we deal with is the multiple non-accredited assessors working in an organisation and then handing over the assessment to an accredited assessor to sign off. So that's a fairly common practice in a lot of maybe architectural offices or drafting offices where they might have 4 or 5 people that understand how to use the software and do the rating, but they have one person that signs the actual certificate with their number. Again, fairly dangerous practice if you've got someone else, if you're the one that's signing them off and you've got other people doing the work for you, that you've got to be very, very confident that they know what they're talking about if you're going to sign them off. There are another group of assessors out there that will take on work and outsource it to other assessors, accredited assessors, because they can get it done cheaper. That's another common practice out there where a person, an accredited assessor will take on the work, give it to another accredited assessor to do the job because they might be too busy to handle it. And again, a dangerous practice because the person that they give it to may feel that because they were given it by an accredited assessor that they would be responsible, the person that is offering them the job. Well, no, once again, the issue is that the person that signs off on that certificate and puts their accreditation number on it, they're the ones that are responsible. They're the ones that are paying the professional indemnity insurance. But out of all of those, they're not the ones that are the concern. The major concern in this industry is the non-accredited assessors that are using the accredited software tools, whether it be First Rate, BERS, Accurate or HERA, to get the information that they need. And then what do? They go and create their own certificate. So in many cases, what I've seen is Photoshop certificates. People that actually take a NatHERS certificate and chop it to pieces, but still it has NatHERS written all over it. Like, these certificates are fraudulent. It's quite amazing what people think that they can get away with. These people are dangerous. They're costing this industry countless amounts of money, and as I said, totally unacceptable that there are people out there that are doing this. The AAOs, NatHERS themselves are doing all they can to stamp this out, and hopefully that will come sooner rather than later. Okay, so what do we do to try and help with these issues? Well, we could consider making legislative changes, but that takes time. Well, I'm sure we're all aware that the National Construction Code will be coming out in 2022. There's a lot of changes that will be made to that code which are relevant to assessments. We know that NatHERS are looking to introduce whole of home assessments to the NatHERS rating. That looks as though it's going to hit us in September, the same time that the National Construction Code comes out. But to make changes to the code would take years. Some of the changes that we've been talking about will come out in the new National Construction Code, but anything that hasn't been already developed or written will have to wait for another 2 or 3 years before legislation changes. My personal opinion is that we need to further educate not only the industry, but the public. And again, my understanding is that the NatHERS are working on developing information for the public to be made aware of the NatHERS assessments. And I think that's where we should be guiding ourselves as well into teaching people what they need to be looking at. Look at the QR code on a certificate. Reference that QR code. Like going back to the non-accredited assessors that that do their own certificates, certifiers should be made aware that if it hasn't got an accredited QR code on it, don't even think about accepting it. But we know they do. The same with Form 15 in Queensland. There's an accredited assessor the certifier gets an accredited assessor to sign this Form 15 to say that he's a competent person. Well, unless that certifier does a background check, how does he know that he's a competent person if he's not an accredited assessor? So it's education of the public, jurisdictions, certifiers, and everybody else out there that need to be made aware of this. You're always going to have competition out there. That's just the nature of business. But in some cases, if you are going to try and take on some of your competitors, you may lose because you'll never beat them. And what you'll find is that eventually you'll be looking for something else to work on that's going to supplement your income. So as you can see, there's no magic formula to the way we work out cost of assessments. My recommendation to assessors is simply work out what service you want to use, what you want to offer your customer, and charge accordingly. But make sure your customer knows what service what they're going to get for their money. In Australia, this industry is still in its infancy. If you do it right and you charge accordingly and you market properly, you'll also grow as this industry grows. I have no doubt about that. Thank you.